Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night to all of you, and welcome to our Virtual Open Day. I'm Luca Enriquez, Professor of Corporate Law at the Faculty of Law in Oxford and the Academic Director of the course. And I would like, first of all, to congratulate you all for your offer. It has been particularly difficult for us to select you. And not because you are not good, but because there were so many others that would have deserved an offer. And we were constrained by the university numbers, of course. So heartfelt congratulations. And I would, so today is the occasion for you to learn more about the program before making the choice, or actually some of you may already decided to come and just want to know more. Others may still be undecided, and we hope to provide you with all the information that will be useful for your choice. Before I share my slides with you, I would like to introduce you, the people who are here to help me with this presentation. So we have, first of all, Joanna McKenna, who goes under the Zoom name of MLF Office because she's the MLF Senior Administrator. We have then Ellie Bowen, who is MLF Careers, Events and Alumni Officer of the program. We have Catherine Chandler, the MLF Administrator. And we also have the pleasure of having with us Tom Wetzer, who is the Associate Professor of Law and Finance and also an MLF alumnus from 2015. And in addition to these Oxford staff, we also have two students who very kindly accepted our invitation to take some time off their busy schedules as MLF students to give you some direct insights into what it means to be an MLF student, and also to provide you with answers that I'm sure will sound more credible if they come from them. So Mika Lauser is a MLF student and is also the MLF student representative for this year. Welcome, Mika, and thank you. And Sadaf Tabatabai is a MLF student as well. And we chose one student from the law stream and one student for the finance stream, so that we should be able to cover these bases equally well. Let me now share my screen to make it easier for you to follow my presentation. So now you should see just my slides. And so I will give you some basic information about the course and our students, past students' career path, and some changes ahead for the program. We'll have a slide on deposits and deferrals, which might be something of very current interest for many of you, and then we'll leave some, actually, I hope most of the time for a Q&A session, also based, starting with the questions that some of you have already sent to us in preparation for this. So what about the MLF course structure? Well, if you have done your due diligence, you should be familiar with this slide, which gives you a sense of how the year will roll out for you. You will be required to be here 2 weeks before the official start of the first term for 2 weeks of induction that will, from a teaching perspective, will focus on making sure that you have some basic financial reporting background knowledge, and also that you all have the minimal math that is sufficient and necessary to follow the courses that will start then in the first term. In Oxford, we have this strange thing that we give names to terms instead of using the seasons. We have a Michaelmas term, a Hilary term, and a Trinity term. Clearly, there is a religious origin for this name, but don't ask me further questions on that because I wouldn't know the answer. And so the first term is you will have one main course, one main core course, which is financial economics, or first principles in financial economics, that will give you the basic conceptual tool to understand then and to make the most of the other core course that together with first principles of financial economics has really been conceived for this course, which is the law and economics of corporate transactions, that will take place in the second term, and the third term will be taught by Tom Wetzer, and we'll have a first term more focused on theory, and then a second term in which you will be required to look into real-world cases and engage with them in groups. In the meantime, you will have started already in Michaelmas term your finance course, which will run from Michaelmas to the end of Hilary term. And the examination for this course will be, in fact, at the end of Hilary term, whereas financial economics will be examined at the end of Michaelmas term. And then in Michaelmas term, you may also start one of the two law electives if you choose the law stream, or you may start the only law elective if you choose the finance stream. If you choose the finance stream, you will pick only one law elective, and one of them, which is very popular among our students, is the Principles of Financial Regulation course, which starts in Hilary term, actually. And in addition to that law elective, you will be taught corporate valuation at the business school, and you will be able to choose from a list one finance elective from courses taught to MBA students at the business school. So next year, there will be many changes in the program, not the substance, but more the something more, nothing profound, but we will have, first of all, a new course director who is here today. So Tom Wetzer will be your course director, and I think you're very lucky with that, not to say anything self-deprecating here, but just because he has been with the program since he came to Oxford 9 years ago. He was a student, he was a teaching assistant for the financial economics course. Then he became, while he was doing his doctorate, he became an associate professor of law and finance, and as I said, he's teaching one of the core courses. So he will have a much better inside knowledge than anyone else into the course, and so I think that's very positive. I must say I can't be as positive about the fact that we will have a new MLF senior administrator, but that's, I hope, is just because we don't know yet who will replace Joanna, who has been promoted to a more important role within the faculty. And we will also have some changes in the teaching staff. So John Armour, who is professor of law and finance, will become the dean of the Faculty of Law. So I'm sure you will have a chance to meet him in that capacity next year. But unfortunately, the dean is a full-time job, and therefore he will not be teaching you. There will be a couple of people who do not never teach core courses, but teach let's say popular courses among MLF students who will be on sabbatical. So we want you to know that before you make your decision. I will be on sabbatical in the first 2 terms, so I will be back in Trinity term, and the same is true for Horst Eidenmüller, who teaches the arbitration and mediation course, which I think will not run next year. Because I'm on sabbatical, the comparative corporate governance course also will not run next year. There will be a new departmental lecturer in law and finance, who will help Tom and others in the teaching of PFR, Principles of Financial Principle of Financial Regulation, sorry. And I am happy to announce that the new departmental lecturer will be Anna Christie, who is currently teaching in Edinburgh. And finally, after 12 years, the reader from the business school who has taught until today first principles in financial economics, Oren Sussman, retires at the end of this year and will be replaced by Sung Lee, who is a young and very a rising star in economics and member of the faculty at the business school. So this is what will be new. I think it's important also, judging from your questions, to tell you something about where our students end up. And of course, this slide tells you about where people from who graduated last year ended up, but it's the numbers here, or the percentages here about what people are doing after the master are quite indicative of historical trends. And you will notice that more than half of our students last year have kept their or anyhow continue in their law career, or started one if they came from undergraduate studies. But there are also quite a number of them who made the transition to non-legal jobs. The most common destination is, of course, finance itself, and but others joined startups or management consultancy firms, and one ended up in public policy in government. And we have also some students every year who will continue to study for either a master or a doctorate. In terms of where people end up every year is basically the same. We have people either going back to where they used to be before their master, or people transitioning geographically to London. And you see, so the UK, this is quite characteristic of our program. We have very few, if any, UK students every year, but at the end, after the program, many of them find a job in the UK, and of course, mainly in London, in law firms or financial institutions. And that explains sort of why you see these kind of numbers here. This slide, I will not go through it. There is a lot of detail there, but as I said, it might be important stuff for you. I don't need to go into details now, because these slides will be distributed after we close in the next few days, and so you can look at these slides for a summary of what you need to know about the deposit and also about deferrals. And of course, if you already have questions about this today, you are welcome to make them, to ask them. And now we are already at the point where we can start answering the questions that you sent us. So to do that, I will also ask for the help of our students, current students, and actually, I group them into questions about preparing to arrive here, question about the course, and question about career. And I think the students are best placed to give you advice on how to prepare to come here. So I would be grateful to Sadaf if she could answer the first question, which is about what recommendation we have on how best to prepare for to start the course. Sadaf?
Hi, everybody. So I would recommend to prepare for this course to really, I'm not sure if you've already gotten it yet, but there's going to be sort of a guidebook on foundational math. So really taking that seriously and making sure you spend time going through that before the pre-sessional courses would be really helpful. And then also, so I had pretty much no background in finance or really any literacy on finance. None of that was in my skill set. So I did like a light reading on financial markets, and you maybe want to start looking at or subscribing to news sources if you don't already. These things sort of help you hit the ground running when you're beginning classes.
Thank you, Sadaf. And Mika, would you like to add something to this?
I agree with what Sadaf said. I think I would just add that while you should prepare for coming to the MLF, you should also take some time to rest if possible, because when you get here, you hit the ground running and it can be quite intense. So also do take some time for yourself before you come.
That's precious advice indeed. I would only add that, so as Sadaf hinted at, there is a maths workbook that will be the basis for the pre-sessional course in math. And around mid-May, you will be notified that a Canvas page for your induction will be available for you. And there you will also find the maths workbook. And if you don't feel 100% confident about your math, then a good way to start dealing with this is by having a look at the workbook and familiarize with its contents in preparation for the pre-sessional course, but also for the courses themselves later on. In addition to that, the business school has a program called the Finance Lab, which if I remember correctly, starts before the induction weeks of the MLF, and which is very helpful to help you familiarize with finance, also in a quite practical way. And so you may want to consider that. You will also receive an email giving you the option of being admitted to this course, and so do consider it. And finally, once you get here, you will have access to something that is called Wall Street Prep, which is a set of materials to prepare for MBA students who want to know more about to prepare for financial courses. While that's the default. Our experience is that if you can show some reason why you may need access to these materials in advance during the summer, you may write an email to the relevant people. Of course, you will know who they are in due course, and ask them to give you access during the summer already. So, for example, if you think that you will have to do interviews with financial institutions, it might be good to do some of that before you have these interviews, and that would be a good justification for having early access to it. Mika, would you like to add something about the finance lab, because you have been one of the students there?
Yeah. So if you're considering a career in finance or a shift from law to finance, I would really recommend that you do the finance lab. Reason being is that it's led by a practitioner who has years of experience, but also a really good network. And through the finance lab, you get exposure to people from big investment banks, PE firms. So it's a really great opportunity to build your network, get some good insight into the interview process. And above that, it also gives you a lot of help with your technical skills. Through that, you will have access to Wall Street prep, which you also get with the MLF. But you'll have to do some courses for that. And they also pay for training, which is a great thing to always put on your CV. So I would really, really strongly recommend it if you're considering a career in finance.
Great, thank you very much. I think we can move on to the next question, which is about the specific preparation, if any, that international students should consider before the beginning of the courses. And from what I told you about where our students come from, you will understand that this is practically all of our students that may be in this situation. So, Mika, would you like to have a first bite to this question?
Yeah, so it's similar to the preparation that Sadaf mentioned. I think the only thing I would add, if we're talking about international students, is that if you come from a more developing country like I do, I come from South Africa, really start with the visa process as soon as possible, because there are a few more hurdles that the Home Office puts in your way. Additional medical tests that you might have to do, or financial requirements that you have to meet. So making sure that you transfer the requisite funds, if possible, into an account of your name and do the testing, just to make sure there's no stress of you potentially arriving late, which did happen to a few of our classmates. And I think they do regret having missed out on the first 2 or 3 weeks of class.
Thank you, Mika. That's really, really important. It has become important because it didn't used to be the case that we had students having to arrive late for visa reasons, but in the last few years that has happened. I think it's related to the efficiency of consulates, UK consulates in some countries. But of course, if you know, you can anticipate that. And something that Mika hinted at is that for those of you who have to take an English test, of course, some of you will have already taken it, some others will not need it. But those of you who need to take it, our advice is do not procrastinate, take it as soon as possible. Also for that reason, that is, you have to have it cleared in order to get a visa. And I also would like to add that in answering this question, you have to be aware that every year, a few of our students, I would say, at least at the beginning, will somewhat struggle with the English, because it's not necessarily the case that if you pass the test, you will be really up to speed with the level of English that is not required to take the course, but to also enjoy it, to do it without any stress about not understanding some of the words or sentences in the class and whatever. So I would recommend you to make a sort of self-assessment of your English and make sure that if you struggle with the listening of especially materials that are related to law or finance, you should spend some of your time perhaps resting a little bit less than Mick advised you to, and learn some more English. It's also the case that the university allows you to not to take an English test, but rather take the university pre-sessional language course. And that's perfectly fine on paper, in the sense that it will be enough for you to pass that hurdle. But I have to tell you that in our experience, some of the students who took the pre-sessional language course test eventually, because they had failed, often because they had failed an English test, then struggled during the year. So our advice would really be to make sure that you are at the level that is required to pass one of the English tests that you have to pass, to make your life here as pleasant as possible. Then the next question is a very good one, because maths is an issue to some of our students, or at least not really an issue, but in most cases it's a reason for some anxiety. So it's good for you to have as soon as possible a sense of where you have to be with maths. And the answer to this very precise question about types and levels of math that you are expected to be familiar with is that the level of math is no higher than high school level. Some would even say 16-year-old math level, but that will depend, of course, on how math is taught in the various countries. But the point is that you will have to have some basic understanding of algebra, but basic algebra, functions and graphs, series and sequences, and some descriptive and some very basic inferential statistics. This is just the list of topics that you will also find in the workbook, so don't worry if you haven't taken a note of each of them, because quite soon you will have access to the workbook and you will find out for yourself, and so that will be enough. Then there is a quite specific question: is it possible to get a change in the college that was allocated? The answer is basically no. There have been rare cases where this has happened, but it was for people who had a physical disability that a college, an individual college, could not accommodate, but otherwise this is not an option. Moving on to questions about the course, we have two questions about the finance stream, or perhaps there is a more general question first about that I better answer first, which is how would you say the balance between law and finance is for this course? And is it more finance or law heavy? My answer to that is, and of course anyone can chip in or disagree with what I will say, from students or anyone else, But I would say that there is a good balance or an even balance between the two, especially if you take the law stream, because you will have two courses that are finance and financial economics. One course that is in between the two, in the sense that you'll use what you learn in those two courses to better understand what a good corporate lawyer or transactional lawyer, M&A lawyer does, and how they may create value as such. And finally, two law courses. In the case of those who take the finance stream, the balance shifts a little bit in the direction of finance, of course, because there is one less law course and two courses in finance. Don't be scared by the fact that one law course is replaced by two finance courses, because the reality is that one law course requires you the work load of two finance courses. That's the reason. And so to say something more about the finance stream, first of all, of course, it will be available next year. And unfortunately, we will not be able to finalize the list of the finance stream electives until well into the academic year. But what I can tell you is that there is not much variation one year after the other, and this year's list of electives comprised investing in public equity, an entrepreneurial finance project, merger, acquisition and restructuring, buy-side private equity, the essentials, and buy-side private equity advanced, which has the finance lab as a prerequisite, and finally investing in private markets. These were the finance course that you can choose, in addition, of course, to corporate valuation, which you have to take. What else can I say about the finance stream? I can tell you that you will have until January to make the decision on whether you want to do the finance stream. In the meantime, of course, you will have taken at least one law course, because if you haven't decided yet, that's how it works. At least one, because if you take PFR, Principles of Financial Regulation, that will start in Hillary, and that otherwise you will have started two courses. I can also tell you that the finance stream has been consistently popular among our students, with a majority of them every year taking it, sometimes even a qualified majority. In some years, even 2/3 of our students have taken the finance stream. There are, of course, many different reasons for that, and perhaps I should ask Sadaf why she chose it, and perhaps Mika why she did not choose it. So Sadaf first.
So I think I mentioned this before. I had no real knowledge about financial markets, and I was a litigator before I started this program, so I really had no exposure to reading income statements and things that you do in finance classes, and I really wanted this degree to complement my law degree, and many of you already have law degrees, so, and some of you have practiced already as well. So doing the finance stream for me was a way to sort of I guess lean into the finance side of this program. And if some of you are afraid of doing it because, like me, you have no background in finance, just know that there's a lot of people in the same boat as you. Many lawyers who have absolutely no idea how finance works have undertaken the finance stream. There's plenty of support, and the other students in the class, your classmates will help you, and you'll work together. So don't be afraid of the finance stream.
Good. Thank Mika. Would you like to add something also about the question on the balance between law and finance, if you like?
Yeah, no, so I think the MLF is well balanced. Luca is right. I think if you do the finance stream, it's a bit more finance heavy. But for someone like myself who's doing the law stream, I feel the balance is right. And to answer the question of why I chose the law stream, simply because I have an accounting degree, and that combined with the finance lab felt to me like sufficient exposure to finance. And also, if you do the law stream, essentially half of your degree is a BCL. And we, as some of you might know, the BCL is renowned for being one of the leading law master programs. So I wanted more exposure to that than to finance.
Thank you, Mika.
Can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
Sorry. I was going to say that if you are doing this program to really gain exposure to UK law, as opposed to how, your home jurisdiction, I would recommend doing the law stream, because for me personally, that wasn't one of my goals in doing this program. And so that was the reason why I chose the finance stream. But if that's something you're interested in, you're definitely going to get more of that in the law stream.
Thank you. So yes, I wanted to, just to drop a footnote on what Mika and Sadaf said. That is, I didn't mention that the law electives are taken from the BCL MJUR electives list. So you will take these courses together with BCL and MJUR students. And something that I forgot to say in response to the question about preparation is that there are international students who come from common law jurisdictions, and of course international students who come from civil law jurisdictions. And I would say that that doesn't make much of a difference for the MLF. The only exam where non-common law students complain that they are struggling a little bit because they don't have a common law background is a law elective that is called the legal concepts in finance. So my advice, if you want to take that course and you don't have a common law background, do some readings on your own on the common law and the main commercial law concepts that are used in English law, because that will help you with that specific course. But other than that, my impression, and again, well, we have two students here who are from more or less from a common law background. Perhaps Tom Wetzer is the only one in the call who is not an inferior student, who has a civil law background and can either support what I'm saying or have a different view. But for all other courses, there is no handicap from not having had an education in or practice focused on common law before the course.
I mean, for what it's worth, my sense is very much that it is not an impediment to taking most courses. I think the one exception that Luca highlighted is a good exception to note, because it's a very technical legal course, but all the other courses that are on the list are difficult, but they do not require the kind of extensive self-study that would be impossible to do well. Whereas I think with legal concepts, you'd have to really start in advance and really, really get on top of the material before. For all the other courses, you may still encounter, of course, that in some contexts, it's helpful to understand certain common law concepts and specific parts of common law doctrine but that's very manageable to catch up on this side.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, so now I think we can move on to the 3 questions about careers. The first is a very general one, to which perhaps the best answer is in the slide I showed you, this one. These are the main destinations of our students, and the numbers are more or less these every year. So I would say law, finance, and other professions that are more or less ancillary to corporations and financial institutions, like management consultancy. Then we have two. So the second question is also a good one, which is about how do we think doing this program will impact the day-to-day practice of those who practice as transactional lawyers. And here my answer is based on what alumni have told me over the years many times, which is that the way they understood what they were doing changed completely, in the sense that before the course, our students were basically passive when in a room with clients there was a discussion about financial issues or commercial aspects of a deal, anything related to the structure of a deal. And so they were there and took basically what the advisors, especially the investment bankers, would tell them that the investment banker would want, or the client directly would want. Whereas with what they learned in the MLF, they started playing an active role in those meetings and be able to suggest solutions or criticize suggestions that came from other people in the room, and recommend improvements to the solutions that were proposed. And that's I think what really changes after you have taken the MLF. You will have a role in complex transactions, which will make you much more of a leader within the room than you have been used to. Perhaps so that would be my take. We can discuss this further later. Before then, I may give an answer to the last question as well, which is whether in-house lawyers, so those who may transition to a financial institution or an investment fund as an in-house lawyer, would be competitive for finance or investment related position compared to those with a finance background. And well, because of what I just said, my answer is yes. You will at least you will be on a par with MBAs, those with an MBA, because you will have taken the same finance courses as them. I shouldn't say this, but the average quality of our students, according to our teacher at the business school, is higher than the average quality of MBA students. And if you are smart enough, you will be able to make the interviewers understand that at the other side of the table when you are doing a job interview, and therefore you might even have an advantage compared to them, because on average, as I said, you are a more brilliant bunch than them. Having said that, I would like to ask Mika and Sadaf if they want to add something. By the way, Sadaf is one of the students who may end up in London, transition to a London job from the US after the MLF. She's of course in the process of finding a job here, but perhaps you might want to tell us something on how you are approaching this transition while you are an MLF student.
Yeah, so I am definitely looking to move into the London legal market, and something that I did before I started the program, which I found super helpful, was sort of starting to build your network in the UK, even from afar. And I did that by leveraging my home network, including my former employers and my former law professors. When you speak with them, you'll find out that you actually know a lot more people in London than you think. And that really helped me Michaelmas term, which I found to be less busy than Hillary term. So Michaelmas term was a great time for networking. I was able to reach out to people that I had emailed before the program and, finally grab a coffee with them. And it just really helps you get your bearings before moving into a brand new market. And that way, when you do go into job interviews, you sound like you know what you're talking about. Whether you actually do is another thing, but you at least pick up the language and learn, how to speak about your goals, your career goals, in an educated way. And that really comes off, that shows when you're speaking to a potential employer.
Thank you, Sadaf. And before I forget, I wanted to add that if you want to transition to a finance job, you should be aware that interviews for those jobs take place quite early in the academic year. So you really have to, if you want to be considered for a position after the MLF, immediately after the MLF, unfortunately, you will have to go through that process even before you start here. And actually, the business school provides some career support during the summer. You will again receive an email with details about this. So starting around July, you will be able to get some advice on how to search for a job in finance and the timetable to do that. And that's why you may want to access Wall Street Prep well in advance before you come here. Mika, would you like to add something on career-related matters?
I definitely agree with Sadaf. Building your network is definitely the most important thing. And if you're in any way still on the fence about doing the MLF and you're not convinced by the academics thereof, be convinced by the network, because the alumni network that Ali can put you in touch with, the careers team at the business school, your cohort in itself, it's an absolutely amazing network. And I've been able to use that network to create opportunities for myself. And Luca is also correct that if you're considering a career in finance, it does start very early. So I really do recommend joining those career sessions in July. I had my first interview for a summer internship in finance in our first week of the MLF. So it was very early, didn't have a lot of knowledge of the MLF to rely on. So doing the finance lab also, once again, really does help because I'd done Wall Street Prep by that time. So I had the technical competence necessary for those interviews to fall back onto.
Thank you, Mika. And I think, if I remember correctly, we have another 9 minutes. And So I would open the floor to any additional questions. And as you may be aware by now, you can either raise your hand, either physically or virtually, with the Zoom raise your hand function, or you can use the chat to write down a question, and I will read it and try and answer it. We were so exhaustive that you are speechless. Oh no, Edgar.
Hello. I was wondering if we could request to do a course different than the ones established on the financial stream, on the finance stream.
Yes.
Like if special interest in a course taught in financial economics or in the MBA, could we request that one?
The answer to that, and Catherine will correct me if I am imprecise, is that it is possible, but it's not a right that you have. So the academic director will have to authorize you to do that, and the business school will also have to authorize you. The main constraint may well be timetable issues. So you will have some courses, and of course we make sure that there are no clashes with the electives that are on the list, but we cannot guarantee that there will be no clashes with other. And then there is you will have to give a sort of justification for why you want to do a different course, and we will judge upon that there is a genuine interest in, and that there is some kind of consistency with the goals of the MLF in you choosing a different course. I hope that clarifies. And and again, Catherine, if I was not precise, please.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Good. So I see some questions here, and the question by Yvonne has already been answered by Mika, I see. Is the finance lab at an extra fee, and will this be done virtually? Oh, I don't have the, but finance lab starts on the Wednesday before the MLF induction program. It's in person and for free. That's the answer, which I wouldn't have had. And that's also, I join Yvonne and Kemi in thanking Mika for the timely answers. Daniel.
Good afternoon. Thanks you very much for this introduction. I have a question which is related to the answer given to the question in the chat. It is about the induction program. I read on the website that the start of the program is going to be on the 25th of September, if I'm not wrong. But is that the start of the MLF main program or the induction one? So, I mean, induction program is before that date or not?
No, the induction program starts on the 25th of September. Yes, those 2 weeks you will be here with these pre-sessional courses and meetings, induction events. There will be a dinner, and there will be a careers day that will give you more information about that, and so on and so forth. Edgar.
Thank you. I was wondering if entry to the finance lab is very competitive. Are there very limited spaces, or I was wondering if most applicants got in, or how is the application process handled?
My understanding is that we haven't had any issues with people, but Joanna, you may, you're smiling, so maybe I'm not aware of issues with that.
I think it would be fair to say that the finance lab seems to grow in popularity every year, and the standard as well seems to increase every year as well. So it is an application process. We'll send you full details of what that process looks like. I expect we'll probably send them to you in about mid-May. And there'll be details there of exactly what's expected from you to make an application. We've got a good track record on the whole of getting MLFs onto that programme. Inevitably, there are some disappointed candidates each year, and that boils down to the business school selecting the strongest applications to join. But as I say, on the whole, we do well. Look out for the email about that application process, though, and try to sort of mentally put some time aside this summer to work on your applications.
Thank you. So Yvonne has a question about employment statistics. Does that include employment by international organizations like the World Bank, IMF, and IFC? Well, I think if there are any of those, it will be under public policy that we have listed them, but I'm not sure whether last year we had anyone who went on to work for one of these three institutions. If anyone knows.
From memory, there was one, and that person is included in those statistics.
Thank you, Joanna. So as the saying goes, Edgar, is that a new or a old hand?
Oh, sorry, my hand stood.
Okay. Any other question? Oh yes, Ekaterina.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Professor Enriquez, for the presentation. My question is related to some course for lawyers. There are a lot of was saying about finance lab course. Is there anything for lawyers? That's my question. Thank you.
And the answer is that no, there is no pre-course for lawyers. I mean, the University of Oxford Faculty of Law now has a summer school, but it's something completely separate, and I'm not sure when the deadline was for applying for that. But the reason why there is no such pre-course for lawyers is that a requirement for applying for the program is that you have a prior law degree. So we are assuming that everyone has sufficient knowledge about law to do well in the course, as confirmed by our record.
Luca, if I could just maybe add to that, what you also do get access to is business law workshops that run every single week, which is a great place for you to, create more knowledge about law and upskill yourself if you're thinking about doing any type of interview for a law firm in London.
Yes, thank you, Mika. So that's, of course, during the year. It's not in anticipation of the year. And we usually have some 6 to 8 of these every in the first 2 terms, a slightly lower number for the third term, because when we get too close to exams, no one shows up. And so that's the reason why it's less than every week. But these are occasions for you to be exposed to cutting-edge research in law and finance, mainly. And so, as Mika said, it's especially good, I would say, also for those who have an interest in academia as a possible career.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Rodrigo, is that a hand or a hello or neither? Okay. So I don't see any other hands or questions in the chat, and therefore I would like to thank you all, but especially Mika and Sadaf for taking the time. And well, I hope I will see you, even though I will not be welcoming you. Tom will be on the 25th, but I hope I will see you in Trinity term at the latest, myself, and that you will have I hope that you will make the right decision, which of course I know which it should be, and then that you will have a great start in the program. Good luck. And thank you.